You're watching the She CEO podcast with Dr. Julie Ducharme, talking with female CEOs from all over the globe.
Hi, welcome to She CEO, back for another episode. I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, and I'm so excited. This series is all about talking with women who are CEOs of their life, of their businesses around the world, and every genre you can think of. And I'm so excited to have today Dr. Dawn Ella with us. She is a visionary entrepreneur and inventor of science-informed wellness technologies who draws on neuroscience and sensory therapeutics to elevate wellness and reimagine mental health. She is the founder of the Soul Medic, her private wellness practice, Saparo World Creations, and her nonprofit humanitarian innovation in wellness and mental health and Soul Link, her proprietary science-formed multisensory wellness technology digital platform. Basically, ladies, she is amazing, awesome, and brilliant. Dr. Dawn Ella, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, I could keep going on and on because you are incredibly talented. As I was reading through all of your stuff, from your films to your inventions to everything you're doing, wow, it's so impressive. And we probably could talk for hours about every single one of these things. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time today. But something that really caught me about your story was that you had maybe we call it an awakening or so when you had a near-death accident and ended up in a coma. And we were talking offset before we got on here that you're not the first person I've met that has had a coma that brought an awakening. And gosh, I'm really intrigued. I feel like this could be a whole book series in itself, right? Interviewing people who have these like awakenings. So I'd love for you to tell our readers who don't know you yet about, why don't we start the story there, how that happened and what came of that?
Okay, well, it was a tragic accident that happened about 20 years ago, and I was in a coma for 3 days.
Mm,
And I went to the other side,
mm,
and I remember going down a tunnel really fast and then coming out and seeing a bright light. My
mm,
eyes were open, which I thought was very interesting because I could see.
mm,
And I was told telepathically, "It's not your time yet, you need to go back." And I
mm,
said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" And I was
mm,
told to utilize this bridging technique where
mm,
you bridge two things together for transformation.
mm,
That's changing things from one state to another. And
mm,
I had studied energy medicine
mm,
before, so I kind of already knew what this was. And I said, "That's it. That's all I'm going to do." They said, "Well, there's certain people that you're supposed to heal, and only you can heal them. So you
mm,
need to go back to do that, but would start with the bridging technique, and you're going to make it much more than that, and you're going to do a lot more things. But this is where you
mm,
have to start." And mind you, on the other side, complete bliss.
mm,
The frequency was so high and it was just so beautiful. Really quickly, I went right back into my body and
mm,
then tried to stand up, fell to the floor. My head had cracked open, nicked the
mm,
nerve in my eye. It felt like I was on the side of the wall. They knocked me out until a little bit later. I remember
mm,
waking up, and that's when they told me I'm going to be bedridden for a year. And I also had retrograde amnesia, which
mm,
means I didn't remember a lot from before.
mm.
So I
Wow.
remembered the other side, and the conversation I had with the other side continued because my first thought was, because down here it was so dense and heavy and
Mm,
not a high vibration, especially being so injured. And
mm,
I remember thinking to myself, how am I supposed to help heal people? I can't even stand up. And that's
yeah.
when the conversation continued.
Mm,
And I was explained things like your soul is this ball of light,
mm,
and we have these fragmented pieces that are blocking our soul. And when our light shines and there's no fragmentation blocking it, we see the great things that show up in our world. And
mhm,
sometimes we see the fragments or what is the shadow that shows up. And so
mm,
they also explained that that bridging technique that I had a divine providence on was actually to help transmute those fragmented pieces. So, on a very high
Mm,
level, I came back with somewhat of a savant understanding about frequency
mm,
medicine and vibrational therapy that was for healing. And
mm.
so there began my journey, bedridden for a year. After
Wow.
that year, considered disabled.
Mm,
And I said, no, I'm not going to accept that. And for 20 years, I've been studying and practicing to actually work on an invention to heal myself. And that's
mm.
what I'm here today to talk about.
Wow, that's powerful. And it's powerful that you have been working to heal yourself, which in turn also to heal and help other people.
Of
And that's so
course.
powerful. And I find it so interesting. Like you said, you had the amnesia, but you still remembered your experience. And as you mentioned that, I've heard others speak of, the tunnel and the light at the end, and not obviously the same experience as you, but it just really reinforces that something like that is there because I've heard other people, talk about those different types of experiences. So from this experience, you created something called Soul Link. And I'd love
Yes.
to for you to tell us about what that is and what was the purpose of it.
Yeah, so SoulLink is a wellness and mental health app, and it's multi-sensory digital therapeutic. So what that means is it has audio and it also has video to be able to support your nervous system and your brain from stress towards mental clarity and calm. Now, my experience with it is a little bit unique because as of 6 months ago, my retrograde amnesia actually reversed. And I
Wow.
have my memory back now, which is quite unusual because it's been 20 years.
Wow.
Usually, if people have retrograde amnesia and it releases, it's within 1 to 3 years from the head trauma.
Mm,
So yeah, I could say anything is possible with it, but the focus is for wellness and mental health. Now, the bridging technique that I spoke of earlier, we have this advanced frequency medicine within it that we have a patent on. And I would say it includes within the bridging technique a top down, which is also your mind and brain neural
mhm,
entrainment, and also a bottom up body cells sensory engagement. So if
mm,
you've ever been into frequency medicine or just listened to frequency music, you can feel the experience. That would be more single.
mm,
You're just listening to one frequency. But our patented 10-layer music system includes top down, mind and brain, and also bottom up, body and cells. And
mm,
that's just for the music piece. And then our visual piece has a patented 7-layer visual system that again includes the top down and bottom up.
mm,
Now, with the top down and bottom up, what you're doing is you're actually working with the mental clarity and also
mm,
your nervous system. So when they
mm,
work simultaneously at the same time, you have a greater effect. And
mm,
because I had such a pretty serious trauma,
mhm, mhm,
I needed something more than just frequency to be able to
mm,
replicate that vibrational high that I received on the other side.
mm.
And to utilize the divine providence I was given, that bridging technique.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done to create that.
So, and I actually have it up on my screen here,
Yeah.
your Soul Link. So, is this for everyone? Is there a certain person that you think would benefit from this more than another, or guide me on who would want to be utilizing this?
Well, I think in the world today, I mean, we have statistics that, mental health is 1 in 4 are affected. We have a
Mhm,
stress level based on this world. If it's not just, what's happening around us, it could even
mm,
be the weather and storms or like the recent earthquake that happened.
mm,
There's always something that could have us with our heightened nervous system where it would
mm,
be um, raising
Mm,
our stress level up. And so, anybody
mm,
that's under stress in any way that wants to calm the nervous system, this would
mm,
be helpful for. And it's something that you want to utilize in your daily life.
mm,
So, beginning your day with it and then ending your
mm,
day with it is a great way to
mhm.
incorporate this into our wellness routine.
Yeah.
So, I really would say for anybody, but there's, also if you have more traumatic things, I've
Mhm,
seen many miracles with what
mm.
Solink has brought.
And one other question, because I do have a lot of girlfriends who have, kids that are on the spectrum or children who
Mhm.
are autistic and struggling, h and I know a lot of times they need to be calm, they need something like this. Do you feel
Mhm.
like this is something great that could work for them as well?
Yes, I do. And we have had a lot of people that have children on the spectrum that
Mm,
utilize it to help bring the calm. And it just seems like
mm,
um, it just brings things down levels, is how they've
mm,
explained it to me. Again, I'm not there, so I don't always know
right,
exactly. But even with my savant syndrome of being able to see the formulas
mm,
that I created in this,
mhm,
you could even say that I understand the
mhm,
spectrum because of that. I've talked to many people on the spectrum, and I do have a similarity of understanding. Now,
mm,
that was also because I had retrograde amnesia. So I
mhm,
was very,
yeah,
I was older, but felt like I was very young.
mhm,
So there was other things as well, which has since shifted. But
mm,
regardless, yes, I would say it could be very helpful, and
mm,
it doesn't hurt to try it out to see, because everybody is
mhm,
unique
yeah.
on their own. Hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it's music, it's visuals. It seems I watched one of your videos as well on the website. Like it seems very calming, and so I think that's amazing. And we'll make sure that we post the link to that because this is an
Yeah.
app as well, right? So we can download it on our phone and have it on our phone
Yes.
when we want it. So that's
Yes. It's
amazing.
Yeah. You can have it on your computer as well. So we have Apple, and we also have Apple. I mean the web app, and then we
Mhm.
have Android as well. So
Okay, that's awesome. I have an Apple, so I always forget about the Android users.
yeah, yeah. Well, and we also have Apple Vision Pro coming out next year.
Oh, okay.
So if you could even imagine this with augmented reality, it is
Wow.
quite spectacular what you can actually experience.
Yeah, that is I mean, technology is such an amazing thing, isn't it? That we can
Yes.
create it and, be able to suddenly have it available to millions of people. It's so powerful, and I love that. Well, this is amazing. So we'll definitely be posting the links to this. This sounds we focus a lot on mental health at She Talks, and that's one of our pillars this year for 10,000 Women Rising was we were focusing on business, we were focusing on financial wealth, we were focusing on leadership, but then we said we need to focus on the mental health of women
Mhm.
because we feel very often that women, we always put ourselves last, we put our health last, we put everyone else before ourselves, and then our mental health takes a hit because of that. And I often am having conversations with women who are burnt out and they feel guilty for taking time off. They feel guilty for not dealing
Mm.
with the traumas in their life. And so these are powerful things that I think are great for to be able to say, hey, listen, it's not gonna take over your whole day, but you could listen to this in the morning when you're drinking your coffee. So I just
Exactly.
think that's great, and congratulations on getting that out. I know that's a lot of work. I've worked in those spaces, and so you've done a lot of work. And when I look at your resume, Dr. Don, like I crack up because you remind me of myself in the sense of like you have like an 8-page resume when I look at it. I'm like, "You do not look this old." So, like, like me, I'm always like, "You have got so much on here," and I know you are a film producer, you've done a lot of different, work in the film area, which same thing, I got a chance to look at all those, very impressive. But you also said that you have something coming out pretty soon, another film, and so I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so my story is much longer than we're covering here. So the whole thing of what I went through and how I got where I've gotten will be in a two-book memoir that is set to release 10/10 this year. So in October, we'll be releasing that. And we're also working on a docufilm with Scott Servine. So that will be released in 2027.
Ooh, very, very fun. Now, I just have to ask, how did you get into the movie side? Because I saw that you produce several different movies, and so
Mhm.
obviously you've got your hand in that. And I'm just curious how that came into the mix as well.
Well, before my accident happened, I was an artist. So I've always been an artist. I was more into graphic design and things digitally. So when I was having these savant experiences and I was understanding exactly how things need to be formulated, I would be able to see visually what needs to happen. And now we're talking
Mm,
about the visual formulation
mm,
of our 7-layer visual system
mm,
has formulated visuals, visual imprinting, quantum theory, sacred geometry, and
mm,
epigenetics, Fibonacci sequence, and the golden
mm,
ratio design. So I would be able to see that, okay, we're doing the sand dunes. We need to have 90% sand dunes and 10% sky. The curves need to be over
mm,
here. Like I literally could see the vision of all of it.
mm,
So, and as well as the music, because I'm
mm,
also a music producer. And that's not something that I had previous, but being an artist,
mm,
I would be able to see, okay, we need the binaural beats to come in here. We need to put the brain in alpha here and just be able to formulate exactly
mm,
how our 10-layer musical system should be operating in order to get the strongest effects. Now, our 10-layer music system is also comprised of sound intonation sequence, brainwave entrainment, transcendental mantra music through sound, Solfeggi frequencies, isochronic tones, melody, atmosphere, chronic progression
mm,
of sacred geometry in sound. So our patent and our formula are what I actually had visions of,
mm,
to be able to replicate how I felt on the other side. Because
mm,
coming into this world, I didn't necessarily feel it. And I knew I needed to help people heal. I've got this divine gift, but I
mm,
need to give it to myself first. And so
mhm,
I would say being creative.
mm,
I've always been creative, but that just led to these opportunities to then put it into form and to share with
mm,
the world something of higher vibration, not just in
mm,
my sound formulas, but even in film and
mm.
music.
Yeah, that's powerful. And you are clearly incredibly talented to be able to play in all those spaces. And so, as I think our listeners are listening, oftentimes I get questions of like, I have a vision or I have a dream or I have something that I see and I want, but I'm struggling on how do I start? How do I get there? And very often the question is, how do I get to where you're at? Which my response always is, my path is not your path. But
Mm.
along the way, I'm sure you maybe ran into some hiccups or some barriers that you had to step past. And maybe you could share some of those with some of our listeners who may be trying to see how they go after that vision that they have.
Right. Well, having a diagnosis of disability is really something that was hard to overcome because it was not easy. Again, it's been 20 years that I've been doing
Mm,
this. One thing I can tell you is that I had value. I put value in this gift I was given. And when you have value on something, you don't usually stop. It's not
mm,
like I'm going to get to this point, that I'm going to be there. I value this. And I can talk about the miracles that I've been
mm,
through in the past 20 years that led me to where I'm going. But really, it's about where I'm headed because we have
mm.
a patent pending in 48 countries, as well
Wow.
as the patent that we've already received in the US. And with that, I want to actually bring this to all of humanity. So,
Mm,
the one gift I can give is to raise your vibration and
mm,
utilize something like Soul Link in order to help raise our
mm,
vibration and help,
mm,
our body and our mind and our soul and our
mm,
energy be able to vibrate at such a level that we can actually conceptualize what we imagine.
mm,
I also have another book that's free, and it's a free read that's called the Health Booklet.
mm,
In that contains the formula behind SoulLink, but also the basic principles that I utilize to actually get myself where I needed to be.
Mm,
Things like the law of vibration, that we have
mm,
mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional bodies, and how to work with that.
mm,
So, basic stuff that we forget.
mm.
So that's a free resource that I can say you can check out. Again, it's called the
Yeah.
Health Booklet. And in there, I think that it can be a good guiding principle to have a foundation to stand on
Mm,
because, retrograde amnesia, I did not actually was trying to reverse it, but for that to happen 20 years later,
yeah.
to actually have the brain repair itself is quite a miracle. And
Mm,
so when you have your focus of your value, you can
mm,
really obtain things that your heart and soul are
mm,
longing for, and with
mhm.
that it helps you keep going.
Yeah, that's powerful. When you talk about the law of vibration, because
Mhm.
I'm learning about this, I did read a book about quantum physics, and
Mhm.
all of that. Can you dive a little bit more into what that law is? Because everyone may not understand it. I mean, I understand it a little, but I'd love to understand it
Mhm.
some more of what that means exactly.
Yeah, so the way I describe it in the book, it's about like imagine a wheel. So we have this wheel that has mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And those mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional are actually connected to north, south, west, and east. So
Mm,
north is fire, and that's
mm,
spiritual. South is earth, and that's
mm,
physical. West is heart, and that's water. East is mind, and
mm,
that's air. So the earth, water, air, fire are also within those. And so
mm,
imagine that circle or your wheel.
mm,
Is a vibrational energy because again, law of vibration, everything has vibrational energy, and this is
mm,
scientifically proven. It's but what do we do with it? So we all
mm,
have a mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional aspect of ourself.
mm,
So imagine your wheel and imagine, let's say, your week. And how much
mm,
in your week is spent in the mind? How much is spent in the heart? How much is spent in the spiritual? How much is spent in the physical? Are you equaling out all four energy bodies that you have? And if you're
mm,
not, then you can imagine your wheel is dented in those areas.
mm,
So as the law of vibration moves all the time, that's your wheel moving. And if you're
mm,
running into blockages or things that are in your life that you run into like a stumbling block, it could very well be because one of those aspects inside yourself is out
mm,
of harmony,
mm,
because everything that's internal reflects externally. Just like
mm,
that soul and the fragmented pieces I spoke
mhm,
about at the beginning,
mhm,
everything is an inside job. So everything is coming from internal.
mm,
So having a foundational aspect of just having that understanding and trying to
mm,
incorporate that into your daily life so that you
mm.
can think, okay, well, maybe today I was doing too many podcasts and I'm all in the mind and things like that, but then I will spend the next day to be out in earth and get more grounded and really help
Mm,
balance out. Um, I have to say that was a foundational piece that I needed to work on first before I would really ever get to where I am now. I
mhm,
had to understand the fundamentals of
mm,
who we are because we are in the quantum multidimensional. So
mm,
that would be the simplest way that I could say
mhm,
you can understand vibrational medicine.
mhm. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that makes sense, and I agree. I think we all know when we're unbalanced, and the question
Mhm.
is, are we actually gonna recognize it? Like you said, there's days for sure, I run a crazy schedule, and I can tell when I'm about to hit a wall. Like, I can tell, I can feel it because and I think a lot of us know, but the question is, are we actually, like, doing anything about it? Are we drawing the boundary and going, "Hold on, like, I've been giving to everyone all week long, but I haven't done anything about myself," or I haven't slept in, X amount of days really well because I've been doing this. And so that's definitely something as I've gotten older, I've definitely recognized more about myself is like, I have to balance things out because if not, I will hit a wall and I will just crash and burn. And, that's something that, I've become very aware of. But, when you're younger and you have so much energy and you have, I didn't think about that a lot. I could go for a whole week and just go, 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 and then I'd crash. So I appreciate you explaining that because I know sometimes as I'm learning more and more. Like I said, when I started reading more books about quantum physics, which I found incredibly interesting, and understanding those things, you kind of have those aha moments, right? Where you're reading it and you're like, oh, now I get
That's
it.
why.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's why that's happening. Or, oh, I knew there was something not right, but now I get the how behind the why. And so that's really powerful to hear that. And of course, I've been able to many years ago, I worked with special needs children that had all different types of
Oh.
special needs. And then I got a chance to work with special needs adults. And it was a
Mhm.
real blessing. And I had to create a computer lab for special needs adults. And so I dug deep into like things that you were talking about, like what helps them, get past these things like music and those things. And even though I didn't obviously dive as deep as you did, it was a real revelation to how healing things like music were for them and how calming it was and how it helped them get centered. All those things were a real revelation of like, okay, wow, like because something I learned when I was working with special needs adults is they are just like us. They have things they love, they have visions, they have dreams, they love to sing, they love to dance, all those things. It's just that they have to do it differently sometimes. So it sits with them the right way. And so, this I feel this app would even be great for them because, it's
Mhm.
such a powerful thing what you're doing with the vision and that. And I just love this. Well, I know we're coming to the end of the podcast. And like I said, we you're gonna have to do like a workshop on this for the She Talkers. I mean, this is just like we're gonna have to get you to do this because there's just so much power in this. But are there any last few things you want to point out, touch on, or talk about before we close this on out that you want our listeners to know?
Well, I would say, the understanding that everything is an inside job. We
Mm,
have different ways we can look at the world. We have different states of consciousness we can look at the world. But the one thing I learned from the tragedy I've been through is that love is the only thing that's real. So you have love
mm,
based consciousness or you have fear based victim
mm,
consciousness.
mm,
And if everything is an inside job, that means we have a lot more control than we know.
mm,
So, but this
mm,
world, we get caught up in, the illusion of everything. And
mhm,
because of that, we get into victim or we get into fear based
mm,
consciousness. And so
mm,
that's the one main message that I would love to send to all the viewers is to
mm,
understand that everything is an inside job, which means I have control over a lot more than I think I do
mm.
because doctors told me I was disabled. And again, 20 years of retrograde amnesia, I've now reversed. So
Yeah.
the miracles prove it.
Mhm,
And I hope to be a testament for this kind of work
mm,
that we're talking about today. And with that, I hope to give inspiration and hope for others to carry on and help raise your vibration through
mm.
things like Soul Link.
Well, you've absolutely been an
Mhm.
inspiration today, and I think this podcast is gonna bring a lot of hope for people to check out some really amazing things and hopefully
Yes.
help heal them from their trauma and those things that have happened. So such powerful things you're doing, Dr. Dawn. I'm so grateful that you're able to be on the show today and
Thank you.
educate us on this. For those of you, who wanna check out more with, Dr. Dawn, she has her website, drdawnella.media. She is not a one-trick pony. She has a long list of amazing talents that she does, so you should definitely check that out. And we'll, of course, post the link for the Soul Link app to make sure you can all check that out. And one last question I'm going to ask you. I ask everyone this is if you could go back to your younger self and
Mm.
give your younger self advice, what would you say?
I would say everything I just said. Don't have so much fear and worry, and really
Yeah.
just to find the love and to stay in that high vibration because this world really is a dream and you can live in your own parallel reality and
Mm,
you can really create miracles. I'm a living testament of it. So
awesome. I love it. And you are a miracle. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
thank you for having
And
me.
as I always close it out, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.
Thanks for watching the She CEO podcast. Don't forget to smash that bell icon and don't forget to like and subscribe.